walking through them, one of the things that he discovered was worded by King David when he said in the 23rd Psalm, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Now notice this. David does not say, even though I walk around the edge of the canyon and look down from a distance at the valley of the shadow of death, even though I have to see death from afar. He doesn't say, even though I get to stay in the pleasant highlands and end up looking at that suffering from a distance. David says, even though I personally walk in the deep experiences of misery and death. You see, one of the things that we have to do when we work with our pain is go through it, not try to whip. That's our culture. Our culture says, don't have pain, don't have pain, don't have pain. When in reality, it is in that moment of suffering that God sometimes teaches us the greatest thing. And if you struggle with the doubt that is caused by pain, I would suggest that you study those things that cause peace. Understanding that in our pain, God can speak to us if we will pursue those things that cause peace. That does not mean that the pain is going to go away. I have known people who have developed a tremendous growth in their faith in the midst of their pain, and the pain remained. I would also suggest that in our emotional pain, we need to realize that what we are feeling may not be the absolute reality. When we lose a loved one and we feel like there's no God there, we feel that way, but that's not the reality. I've talked with people who have had feelings of suicide, and they said, I felt like no one cared for me, when the reality was they were loved deeply by many people. People who go through deep depression, they have that feeling of depression and sorrow and uselessness and of no value. But the reality is that they are incredibly valuable and beautiful and wonderful to those around them and to God. So in our emotional pain, study the things that bring peace. That is the Word of God. Deep connection and deep relationship with those who love you. Being a part of the community of faith in a small group, in the church, and personal relationship. Sometimes our doubts are caused by personal issues. The question of ambiguity. Am I in the middle of God's will? I like this one. We touched on it a little bit this morning in Sunday school. I need to find the answer to the question. You know, if I can get the question, the ultimate question, the one gigantic great question, and then I can find the answer, that perfect, absolute, settle-it-all answer to the question, then I can have it all settled. But we live in an age that works against the idea of trust. As a matter of fact, we live in an age where trust is almost seen as a vice, and cynicism is a virtue. I find it interesting that you can make a good living if you're a cynic. I would suggest that you consider the example of talk radio host. You know, I read between the lines. I love it, and I don't want to get into politics. If I get into politics, you have questions about politics, come to me privately, I'll tell you what to think. But from the pulpit, I can't do that. I do, however, want to mention Rush Limbaugh. He says, I know how liberals think. Oh, I'm deeper inside of liberals than even liberals are. You know, maybe we shouldn't spend so much time reading between the lines. Maybe we ought to just read the lines. You know, we are so cynical. We use cynicism to test everything. Have you ever thought about that? Have we questioned cynicism? Have we said, you know, maybe cynicism isn't the answer to answer the questions to which we can't find the answer? Let's be a little bit cynical about cynicism. In our day, though, it is the spirit of our age is to be doubtful, to question. I wonder what they really mean. And with good cause. You're going to buy a car for only $29 a month. And then the guy comes on with disclaimer, and he's saying like 75 words a second for 2 minutes. You know, what is he talking about? But we are. Here, however, though, I think is an approach that will help us deal with those personal doubts. Deal with living in the age of doubt, living in the age of cynicism. And that is quite the contrary of what we might expect. I believe the answer is to die to self.